Good morning, folks. So, we've got something interesting here today that you need to be aware of. Now, the PDF itself comes under the title Eversheds. And Eversheds LLP is a British multinational law firm headquartered in London. It's one of 50 largest law firms in the world measured by revenues. In 2013-14, it achieved total revenues of 382 million, making it the 12th largest UK-based law firm by this measurement, and profits per equity partner of 729,000. It employs around 1,220 lawyers and around 1,745 other staff in 55 offices in major cities across Africa, Asia, Europe and the Middle East. So it's headquartered in London. It has 55 offices and approximately 1,800 lawyers. Now, you move to Evershed Sutherland. And it's a training contract advice, and the merger between Eversheds and US law firm Sutherland, Aspel and Brennan created a transatlantic mega firm with 2,300 lawyers across nearly 70 offices in over 30 countries. So Eversheds is a huge monster and very tied into the US system. So now let's take a little look at what these bunch of shysters have been up to. Because it's rather important that people are aware of this. Now, it's called the NPoCC Section 22A Agreement. And as I said, Eversheds is the logo. And then it says National Police Collaboration Agreement in relation to the National Police Coordination Centre, NPoCC. So we've ascertained that this is lawyers operating for a non-legal entity as it is. And it's got all the police chief constables on board and the PCCs. And rather interesting, other parties involved we'll get to, also rather revealing. Now, this deed of agreement was made in 2015 between the following chief officers. Now, this is all your chief constables, okay? The Commissioner of the Police of the City of London. So that's the inner city police involved also. So it's going through all the constabularies in England and Wales. Isle of Man. Yeah, the British Transport Police, Northern Ireland Police, yeah. The police of the Commissioner of Police of the Metropolis. So this is basically dragging them all in it. Oh, the Chief Constable of the Civil Nuclear Constabulary. The Chief Constable of the Ministry of Defence Police. So that's the military in. The Chief Constable of the Sovereign Base Area Police. Who the hell are them? Guernsey. Jersey. Gibraltar. All our constabularies are to be found in here, and then it gets to between the following police bodies, and this is where we get the crime commissioners, all of them. Okay, and this was signed in 2015. All right, now it says between the following non-funding parties, and included in that is the National Crime Agency, the College of Policing, the Royal Military Police. Okay, so it says background. As a result of the Parker Review, the parties acknowledge that the Association of Police, Chief Police Officers of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, ACPO, which is incorporated on the 1st of April 1997, will be dissolved on or around the date of this agreement, and that a new coordinating body known as the National Police Chiefs Council, NPCC, has been set up, which shall be hosted by the Metropolitan Police Service. All right, so this is clearly the Crown moving its arms out across the nation. And it's captured all the constabularies, all the PCCs or police and crime commissioners are involved in this, and the military. Okay, and as we said, the inner city of London's own police. Okay, now they will be running this show. Okay, so in essence, if we're looking at that just as a quick one, we may need to be putting on notice the entire raft of hoity-toits within the inner city of London as a private, unincorporated administrator of the entire corporate realm. Okay, this is how the inner city operates. It's unincorporated, so it's in the private, as it were, running the entire public security civil system. Yeah. Now this mechanic is what will be happening in all nations. Yeah, they'll all have their own secret society, because that's what the inner city is. It's the head of the secret society temple, the Temple of Solomon. Yeah, that's what they're building, and this is your Templars. So this is where we're at. So, but through this mechanic, as the inner city gain full command, control over our entire security, police, etc. And the judiciary are going to be in, because this is all lawyers, so the law society are also going to be involved. And this is the creeping vine amongst our domestic system by the Holy Roman Empire, called the British Empire, which is indeed the East India Companies. Company is the name that the Jesuits call themselves. They always have. They're the company. The British royalty call themselves the firm. You see? Can you see where you can see in the hierarchy, just in the understanding of what these terms mean? Company, Jesuits. The Jesuits control the Freemasons. You know, they were very happy back in the day when the Reformation was taking place that the entire Reformed idea would come back to the church, because the Jesuits had installed futurism. What is futurism? Well, futurism is the rehashing of what has been, i.e. the prophecies of Daniel, which in effect was the prophesying of the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. Okay, Jesus fits into that in his prophesying of the fact that the brick will never be rebuilt, not even a brick. So you can see that what they've done is what has been, which is all the prophecies in the biblical text, happened in 70 AD. That's when it happened. The Fatima, in my opinion, now we're on my opinion, the Fatima prophecies also would be the crescent moon version of that entity, terrifying the European Catholics into standing down, because there's nothing they can do for what's to come. And the whole idea of this end times theory is a rehash of what's already happened. That is what futurism is, and it was the Jesuits that claimed to be controlling that. But of course, as I've said many times, the Jesuits are just a rebranding of what was the Templars, the Temple of Solomon, within the Catholic realm. So you could say that the Holy Roman Empire created this warrior caste, the excuse being the Reformation. The Jesuits, for the Society of Jesus, were tasked to undermine the Reformation, which they were happy they'd achieved at the beginning of it by introducing futurism into the Protestant creed. Now, of course, the Protestants removed so many. They when formulating their Bible, removed everything out that wasn't included in the Jewish Torah, a Tanakh, as it were. So what happened with the Reformation is the Catholics that rebelled against the church of that day, who would become called Protestants, had allied themselves with the Jewish Talmudic system, which began with the pact between Saladin and King Richard, the Wooster. Okay, so that is where you get this from. And then the Sultanate took over Byzantium, took on the crescent moon, and there you can see so that the amalgamation of the religions hasn't happened via the religions, which is what it's supposed to do. If they're all three are based on the biblical text, then together those three, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, were supposed to be God's idea of how to rebuke Satan's world as it takes over the earth, thus wiping everybody off the face of the earth and into the world. Okay, and that might spark a bit of interest for Muslims, because it's in the Quran that Islam will be wiped off the face of the earth. Well, there's two ways to take that. There's the physical, which I believe if the Islamic mindset continues to move, then that is a definite reality that you will be wiped off the face of the earth. Because even though you're working with China through Pakistan, the Chinese are showing you what they're doing in relation to religion if you take note. Okay, there's so many Muslims in camps being sterilised, murdered for their organs, etc. That's what's coming to you if you're not, if you step over that line and break the spiritual commandment of, do not murder. There's no slavery allowed in the Ten Commandments. If you're moving in that direction, then you're only setting yourself up for your judgment. And so what I'm saying is this: it's important that people start to recognise the difference, and that the amalgamation of what should be the religions to rebuff this world has happened in the secret societies, which operates for the world. Now, if that should make sense to you, you might want to rewind that and listen to that again, because this is basically the picture I'm trying to present to everybody. That each of the religions has been usurped via the secret society's power, and getting into each of the religions, and slowly over the centuries, shifting the definitions of the words that we can read ourselves. Because it's important that it's not so much that you have to change the text. You have to change the definitions of the words that you're using in order to change the comprehension of what you're reading, as opposed to actually physically changing the text, which is always open to be scuppered by people who do understand their own theology, as it were. So there's what we're looking at, and this that I'm showing you now is the mechanic from that secret society system with the Temple of Solomon, as it's installed itself into our domestic systems. Yeah, so it's dragged all our constabularies in, which is why they can now flip to officer. So they're deceiving you from the get-go, and they're not presenting that deception. So any contracts that they're gaining through flipping you onto person, so they can do business, are null and void in essence, because they're not giving you all the facts. Excuse me. Now, back to the NPoCC. So we've established that it's grabbed all the police chiefs, all the PCCs, and the military. So the Inner Temple now, the inner city of London, is shutting down London. They're shutting down Manchester, because now in Manchester, the police are continuously closing roads and motorways for any little incident that they claim is going on. So that's a move to slowly get into your minds this idea of obstructing the highways, which you're not allowed to do, because they've got you all thinking you're on the roads, which they command under title. They get you as person on a vehicle, you're on the road. You're subject to all this garbage. So can you see how they play this? And it's a slow incremental shift where they grab the command powers of this. You're still in the dark that this has took place, and you're still obeying what you think you should be obeying. Okay? So this is why it goes right back to understanding title. It's so important that until you understand the difference in title, you can't then see this picture. You can't see it. It's quite impossible, because you've got to recognise that there is something going on at the bottom, which sends you off on a wrong direction in your understanding of what's actually going on, what powers and rights you have, and what powers and rights these security systems don't have and yet are claiming and then enforcing. So you've got police, you've got lawyers, okay? All the lawyers are involved, so that's a law society. So not all your lawyers are going to be involved in this, and this will be why sometimes you'll come across a lawyer who won't notarise. Well, it's a conflict of interest, because your paperwork is moving against what they're a member of in the secret side of things, the private, okay? So on the public, you think you're dealing with a lawyer, but in the private, this lawyer is tied into this garbage, a conflict of interest. So if they're saying that to you, that they can't do it, then they're actually being truthful. They can't. They're not explaining to you why, unless they say to you, well, I actually work for that group in the private. So, yeah. So that's a fraud. Again, it's a treasonous, it's treasonous in its nature that people are doing this, you know. But I don't think they actually understand that it's treasonous, because they took all the treason statutes off the books when Tony Blair arrived on the scene, because the communists under New Labour undermined every single thing that you can imagine and took us to ridiculous wars with the backing, as it was New Labour, of the Muslim communities across Britain, who through the mosques are ordered to block vote Labour because of the benefit handout, okay, which they need because they're coming in and they need to have that nest egg for them. Whereas that safety net was set up by the English and the Scottish and the Irish for us, if we get in trouble. That system has been hijacked by this system and is now paying its own components of the occupation and flooding them in as illegals, and then giving them our properties, homes. They're getting benefits like you won't believe, and all the fancy cars. Meanwhile, the natives, the machine that they set up, having been taken over, is now the very thing that's shoving them into poverty, into slavery. You're taking the shot, so you're being sterilised, and whatever else this experiment that's going on is actually carrying out. So back to this system of how they've got the security and the lawyers working together on this secret agreement and then enforcing it in the public, which is what we've been paying for in taxation, etc. So this is background. As a result of the Parker Review, the parties acknowledge that the Association of Chief Police Officers of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, ACPO, which was incorporated on the 1st of April 1997, will be dissolved on or around the date of this agreement, and that a new coordinating body known as the National Police Chiefs Council, NPCC, has been set up, which shall be hosted by the Metropolitan Police Service. The National Police Coordination Centre, NPoCC, was set up in April 2013, and prior to the date of this agreement reported to the ACPO President. It is agreed that the NPoCC shall continue as a separate and independent national unit, which shall be managed on a day-to-day basis by the head of the NPoCC, who shall report to the chair of the NPCC and shall be hosted by the Metropolitan Police Service. It is agreed that NPoCC shall be a non-legal entity and shall be a collaboration between chief officers. So all your chief constables and your PCCs are operating this game as a collaboration. Okay, but this is the secret side of things. This is the agenda that they're all working to, as opposed to law. Okay, they're working to administration law, i.e. acts and statutes, commercial law, but actually not in law, but yet they claim to be so. So there's a deception and a fraud going on there again. So this whole system is built on fraud. So I'll say there shall be a non-legal entity and shall be a collaboration between chief officers. So it's a non-legal entity. So it's in the private. The horse force shall not be liable for the actions of the NPoCC. And any such liabilities shall be shared between the parties to this agreement in the manner set out in this agreement. So they've set this up, and now they're the old mafia take is money goes up, shit comes down. Okay, that's how it works. So if you're in the mafia, by whatever means, whatever you're earning, you're taking a cut, and that goes right on up to the top of the pyramid, right? But any shit that's been entangled in all this, people's getting sus, blah, blah, that is pushed down to the lowest part of it, because everybody's protecting the level above. You're the scapegoat. That's the mafia system. And here we can, no matter what documents you look at when you're looking at this corporate system, at its core, it is this very mafia system. Yeah, that's what it is. So you look at Vanguard, you look at BlackRock. Vanguard, of course, being mainly controlled and owned as shareholders by BlackRock. Yeah, Black Cube, you might say. We do know what a Black Cube. Can you see where this is going? So you've got three religions at the moment that hating each other, when really they're amalgamated in the secret society arrangement, which is then ensuring this division between the actual religions is kept up. So if you're despising one or the other, then you've got to understand that your mindset is completely immersed in this secret society theology, not the actual religion itself. Because the three religions, the core, are operating for God. That's the core aim. The secret societies are operating for the contrary. And in order for that to happen, they have to keep the three that are claimed to be operating for God, or aiming, aren't. They're in so much division, antagonization, etc., and conflict, that the secret societies can then destroy the actual real remnants of those claiming to be upholding the earth and God's will, are actually upholding the complete opposite, and are in the world, and they're operating for the world. You with me? It's important stuff, this, and it's difficult to actually present in a word form. But if you're savvy with this kind of stuff, then you will understand what I'm trying to present. And bear with me, because I haven't completed the sort of program that I'm trying to put out yet. So we're building there, we're getting there. If you have followed it, I'm pretty sure you're getting a gist of what it is I'm trying to present. Because it's so important that we grasp this. Because you're either upholding spiritual law, which is the Ten Commandments, or you've entered the legal system, or the laws of man, which have one intent, and that is, through sophistry, to undermine the 10 laws. So you can act contrary, because, do you see, that's the way it goes. That's the way it's moving. The NPoCC will enable operational independent and local accountability chief officers to coordinate national operations on behalf of the chief officers in order to protect the public. So this goes back to the duty of care they're claiming on you as person. And it's all in the public. Person is the public. Man is private. Now, the MPs are changing all their titles in commerce. There's a reason for all this, you know. The parties have agreed to collaborate with each other in relation to the running and carrying out of the functions, the funding and the establishment of the NPoCC. So they're all in support of this NPoCC. The agreement is made pursuant to Section 22A of the Police Act 1996 as amended, which enables chief officers of police and local policing bodies as defined in the Act and other parties to make an agreement about the discharge of functions by officers and staff where it is in the interests of the efficiency or effectiveness of their own and other police force areas. Officers. So this is the reason why the numbers are going. This is the reason why some of them will just give you a number. It's getting to the point now where they don't even want to be identifying as constables, because even to put that in the mix of the interplay that you're having, the communication you're having, the interaction, if they say the peace constables, then they've admitted to be a constable on oath, and they're at risk of putting the Queen in dishonour, right? Or the office of monarch. Let's not personalise this into personages. Looking at the system as a system of offices, you are bringing the office of monarch of England into disrepute. Okay? The fact that the incumbent is actually operating for the same is the reason why you don't necessarily need to be using HM Queen, the office of monarch. Yeah, that is the English crown, not the temple crown, the inner city of London, which is what is taking over everything. The parties agree that the Commissioner of Police and the Metropolis and the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime are a party to this agreement, both in their capacity as the chief officer and policing body. So the chief officer then, so this mayor, now is this the mayor of the inner city of London? Remembering the monarch, our monarch, has to bow or knock to go and see this geezer. The Temple of Solomon has totally subdued the office of English monarch, Act of Union. That's the key to that. Remove the Acts of Union, this system falls apart. We're back to English law, we're back to Scottish law. Ireland's back to Northern Ireland we're talking. Right, I'll do that again. The parties agree that the Commissioner of Police and the Metropolis and the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime are a party to this agreement, both in their capacity as chief officer and policing body, in brackets, in the same manner in which other parties to this agreement are a chief officer or a policing body, and in their capacity as the host force. Right, so it's... okay. The parties recognise and agree that they collaborate together, not just for the benefit of themselves, but also for the benefit of the Police Service of Scotland and the Police Service of Northern Ireland. Acts of Union is what makes Scotland obey the Temple, England obey the Temple, and Northern Ireland obey the Temple. And as we saw, Isle of Man, Guernsey, Jersey, all in there. Military police. Yeah? It has grabbed our entire domestic system, Scotland's domestic system, England's domestic system, Northern Ireland's domestic system, Guernsey, Jersey, Isle of Man, Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand. Yeah, this is what's happened. So since the Hanoverians took over, in goes the East Indies. The secret societies set up their own secret shadow governance in a nation, give it independence. The only thing that's happened there is it's been given independence from the British government. The secret societies or the Temple Crown has created its own secret hidden control mechanism that's then controlling that so-called independent nation. That's the trickery. It might be a bit different in America because they did actually get rid, but not at secret society level. And remember, Philadelphia was the secret society capital of North America. I've been watching for 15 years moves and things, and now and again you get a little snippet as suggesting Canada is going to be the governing body for North America. Like Scotland is where all the bloodlines live. You know? So the Scots have been annihilated in order that the Belgian, because there were a massive influx of Belgian royalty into Scotland under David I. That's where the bloodlines live. So the Scots have been subdued not by the English, but by the bloodlines that have took over Scotland, the land, etc., etc. And from there, it's decided what will be enacted through the inner city on to the House of Lords and House of Commons. Yeah? This is how they've done it. It's very clever. And this is a shift and how they've pretty much done it into our domestic security and military. Yeah, so that's basically, and then we've got a raft of definitions, which is what you really need to start looking to incorporate when you're writing letters out here. If you're using the term person, you define it, because your definition is what you mean. It doesn't matter what's written elsewhere in other books, dictionaries, etc. If you're defining your terms of importance, then that's what you're communicating in your use of the term. Yeah, this is what you have to start to consider when you're becoming a man. Grown up, your own man. You are making the determinations of what it is. If you use a word, you don't care what other meanings might be. If you define it, that's what you mean every time you use it on that paperwork. Yeah? Simplicity. They use it here. There's a massive raft of definitions here of the words that they're using and an interpretation. You with me? But you can do that yourself, because whoever reads that data then knows what you mean by person. Doesn't matter what they've learned, what's in 1,000 books. You've stated the term, you've made the interpretation. That's what it means every time you use that word. Now that starts to make your communications rather a bit more simpler, because you don't have to be complex and understand everything else. But it is obviously important that you do include, so if you're using person, you want to be using what is established as well. Incorporate it in there, so that everybody understands what's on. But for reference, if they want to go for a definition of the word, they don't go to a dictionary, they go to your definition that you've presented on that paperwork. Okay? And that is another step in coming to understand what it is I've learned this year and how you can start to think in those terms. Get your head into this kind of stuff. Obviously, I'll put this document on the website and I'll put a link underneath for you to have a good look at it and grasp. Because it's only short, really, because the biggest majority of it is just listings of commissioners, constables, and then definitions. What I've read to you is the guts of this thing. So read it a couple of times so you can grasp the immensity of it. Because here we have a body that can be sent notices, liability, etc. Because it's grabbed every single police chief constable and police and crime commissioner. So with that, I shall say, have a good weekend, or it's Sunday now, have a good Sunday, and till the next time.